We are talking about motivation today because we might be running on empty. This time of year is often called May-cember madness because in December and in November we have all of those holidays, all of those breaks, all of those festivities. Well, come May and June, it's the same type of thing, but now we're at the end of the year. So we have to unlock our child's motivation for the final stretch of the school year. So, what even is motivation? A lot of times when people talk about motivation, they won't think of it in terms of a motivational quote or a motivational speech. Like there is some magic combination of words that can inspire another person to work or to engage in a way that they aren't already. Motivation, however, when we talk about it as educators, we are really talking about what comes out of a student, him or herself. So we may think like I can motivate a kid to do their work by offering a reward, but that really isn't motivation. Motivation comes from a combination of self-efficacy and self-regulation. And these are both inside all of us. So they're inside you and me, they're inside all of our favorite learners. And we have to encourage kids to tap into these types of things. So, self efficacy is a belief about one's ability to succeed at a task. And so it's task specific. Sometimes it's even subject specific. And I always describe this one by an example of a student. I want you to imagine a student who loves to write short stories, poems, loves to write in their journal. High self-efficacy for writer feels I am very capable as a writer. I believe in my abilities as a writer. But whoa, in history class, now we have to write a research paper. And we might think self-efficacy for writer is going to be very high, but oh geez Louise, writing is poems, is journal and short stories. So self-efficacy can be high for writing, but it can also be low for writing. When that same student thinks, oh geez, I got to write a history report with sources. I'm bad at that. I can't do that. That's an individual belief. So self-efficacy is task dependent and it can fluctuate even within the same kid. Tasks that you think would be, oh, the kid will think of that as the same, can be very different. Self-regulation, and I want you to pay attention to self. A lot of times when we talk about self-regulation, we put the emphasis on the regulation, like, oh, we have to regulate the kid, but it's self-regulation. That means it's consistent and appropriate application of self-control in key situations. So we're going to talk about these in a little bit more depth. I talked a little bit about self-efficacy because it is going to affect everything a kid chooses. Everything that they see themselves doing or have to do in school, outside of school, is going to be bound to self-efficacy. And if we think about that example I gave before of the kid who feels really capable in writing, journals and stories and stuff, but then, oh, I can't write this report. One strategy to help that student is to focus on past performance, not to tell the student, to tell them what we see. Like we can say, oh, but you're such a good writer. I see you do this stuff all the time. That isn't getting to the core of what's happening. We have to focus on the fact that these terms have self in them. So instead, we want to mine what the student believes about him or herself. So we want to say things like, you know what? Didn't you write that short story one time and like you said it in like old-timey France? Like how did you do that? Didn't you do something like that one time? Or weren't you reading a book about, ancient Egypt because you wanted to like put something in one of your poems? We want to get the student to recall that and then to be able to reflect upon that. They have to be able to see and believe in their skills in a particular area. And sometimes by engaging them in self-reflection, we can get them to like bridge things that they first think are dissimilar, but that are really similar. because students can't succeed until they make the choice to try. We can't do that for them. And a lot of times as a teacher, I've always said that until I was in education, I really didn't get the phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And so I think that maybe, other people are going to like resonate with that we want to build up our favorite learners, but sometimes it's really hard. We can say all the right things, but they're not getting there. By understanding self-efficacy and its strong tie to motivation, we can really start to see ways that we can help our favorite students. And the other side of motivation is self-regulation. And again, this doesn't mean we are regulating the kid. It means that we are helping them learn self-regulation strategies. So, self-regulation is consistent and appropriate application of self-control in key situations. And we can definitely coach this and we can teach this to our kids. We can provide support. Self-regulation really means self-questioning. And the questions here are key. So I want you to think about any one of your favorite learners when they're engaging with an academic task. Students who are engaging in self-regulation are asking key questions about that academic task. Things like, where am I headed? Where am I now? What steps will get me to where I want to go? If we have a student who is struggling with self-regulation, we don't have those kinds of questions happening inside the student's mind. We might see a kid engaging in procrastination. I mean, I do this kind of thing. I see this kind of thing all the time in my sessions. And I realize right now that I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I was so excited to talk to everybody. But I'm Rachel Moss. I'm an executive function coach and professional development specialist here at Educational Connections. So all day long, I am working with students who are dealing with executive function issues. And I see students who are not engaging in self-regulation. They are instead turning to procrastination. They're not motivated to engage with academics. So this is like the kind of educational theoretical framework that we're going to tap into today with some great strategies. And I see we have people here from all over with a variety of ages of students that you're here to support. The strategies that we're going to focus on today are going to help everybody, from your middle schoolers to your high schoolers, because that's what we're really talking about today. Here are the strategies we're going to go through. We're going to talk about ways to engage in conversation that helps with motivation. So we just said at the beginning of this that, there is no combination of phrases or words that we can say that's going to motivate another person. So how the heck are we supposed to encourage this or coach it or move it along? We're going to talk about noticing, naming, and nourishing behaviors through the way that we talk to students. We're going to talk about some study strategies that are all going to work together. So this is like a hack stack. Okay, first we're going to talk about spaced practice. That's going to supercharge studying sessions, which are so important right now because this, I don't care if you're in college, if you're in middle school, finals are a coming down the road. We're also going to hack the planning process. And we're actually going to, this at first, I think is kind of like counterintuitive. Instead of starting with the things that we have to do, we're going to start with all of the things that the kids want to do, but then engage in conversations and reflections that are really going to help with self-regulation. And then finally, the bottom of our little hack stack, we're going to work smarter and not harder using a couple different methods, including the Stoplight Study Guide that is great for any finals or big projects or unit tests that are coming down the road. So let's dive right into it. And again, anytime you have a question, put it in the chat. We're going to have Q&A at the end, but I don't want you to miss out on one brilliant idea that you have. Put it in. Maybe we can even talk about it in real time. So let's get into the first strategy. Well, we got to avoid giving pep talks because when we see a kid who isn't motivated, especially around this time of the year, The first thing we want to do is we want to give that motivational speech. We want to rally the troops, get the team huddled up, and get things moving through the way that we communicate a positive, optimistic viewpoint. But like I said before, there is no pep talk that is going to help a student see themselves as capable, help a student go, "Oh, you know what? I just need to self-regulate better and I'm in it to win it." We can use noticing behavior. We can name things that we say, and we can nourish students to move forward with the things that they have to do. So we need to strategically use conversation when motivation is flagging, not to engage in a pep talk, but to notice, name, and nourish what we see. So I have a couple little scenarios that I'm going to talk through so that we can illustrate what this looks like and how this works. So the first scenario I think is happening a lot. I see this a lot in my sessions where kids who are doing amazing all year, suddenly it's May and it's like, what is going on? How did you, the queen of A's and B's in your algebra class, get a C- on this quiz? And the first thing we want to say is something like we see on the screen here, like, "Oh my God, you're so smart. I know you can get better grades." That's like the pep talk, right? And then we're going to ask a question. It's like, "Well, do you think you could have studied harder for this?" That is definitely going to elicit a response, but it's not going to help a student tap into self-regulation or self-efficacy. We're definitely telling them, "I think you're smart. I know you're smart." But we have to really mind what they think and what they would say about themselves. So when I see this in my sessions, my knee jerk is really to say, "Oh my God, you are so smart. I have seen you write amazing papers and get all these A's, and you brought that calc grade up like a rocket. What is going on here? You maybe needed to study harder." But instead, I ask a question like this. You know, I'm looking at this grade, and this isn't what is typical of you. What strategies have you used in the past that maybe you didn't use here? Or what kind of things did you do in those other quizzes where you were getting, you got that one where you got all the bonus too, so you got like 104%. What worked there? Did something break down here? What went on with your test prep? So now I am tapping into the student, recalling what they did in the past, where they had supreme strength or consistency. I am having the student tell me, "Oh, yeah, well, you know what, for those other ones, I did Delta Math and then I did the reviews on Khan Academy. But honestly, Rachel, in this one, I just was like, well, I got good grades. I mean, I know this stuff." This is literally coming out of a session I just had the other week where I was asking the student to reflect on that. So now I have the student tapping into, "I am good at math. And I am good at math because I have engaged in the past in these processes that require some self-regulation from me. Processes where I am asking, what do I need to do to succeed? What are the types of things that are going to help me? Like, where am I headed? Where am I now? Where do I want to go?" So when we are asking them questions like this, we're really getting them to assess the whole picture of what they've done in the past, in the present, and then coach them towards doing that again in the future. So if you're noticing some of those grade slumps right now, reflection like this can be so powerful. Here's another self-regulation talking point. So in this scenario, I want you to think about, like, the kid's been working on something so long. I have a student that I was working with last night, and he is working on this major history paper. He has read, and it's about the American Revolution. He has read like some primary sources. He has read book chapters. I mean, he's in it to win it. And we're coming up to the due date, and I want to say something like, "You're going to get an A on this, aren't you? How do you feel about this? You have a good feeling about this paper?" which isn't so much a check-in with the kid or checking out the work. It's a vibe check. It's like what emotions do you feel right now about the paper? That doesn't help them self-regulate and it doesn't tap into how they feel about themselves academically. So instead, I pull myself back and I say something like, "Man, you have been working on this paper for 3 weeks. You know what we should do right now? Because, the finals due in 2 weeks. What if we get out the rubric that your teacher gave you? Let's check the draft you have right now and look for how you get that A." So we looked through the rubric together because I was just doing this last night. Turns out in the rubric, it says that the student needs at least 4 direct quotes from articles. We work through the paper together, and lo and behold, he finds that he only has 3 direct quotes. So he has to put another one in. And then we engage in reflection. So, how do you feel about this? We took your paper, it's wonderful, and we found that. And he was like, "Well, this is what I want to work on it right along. I don't want to do it at the last minute because I caught something that could have cost me that A." So instead of getting the vibe check, we're encouraging the student to use things that are also going to tap into that self-regulation. And the other great thing about this is you can adjust along the way. So here, my original thinking about like this kid, I wanted to be like, "Hey, like tell me about how you feel about this." But when we noticed there was an error, we could immediately pivot and get the kid to where he wanted to go. So these types of conversation strategies are so, so powerful. So this structure of the way that we talk to our favorite students, it helps in all subjects. This helps with middle schoolers, with high schoolers. Um, and I think that you're going to see that too in our next strategy, which is spaced practice. This is also another universal one that can help with motivation and academics right now. So spaced practice is my favorite way to plan for studying. This is no cramming studying. Spaced practice means that we literally leave a space in time between study sessions. Ideally, what we do is we have an on day for studying, an off day, and then an on day. And as I talk about this, I'm actually going to show you in the next couple slides with our planning hack what this would look like. So, what we do is we study or practice over planned sessions and we put spaces in between those study sessions. This doesn't mean that, like, on the off day, we're doing nothing, but rather it more or less looks like, let's say we have a kid that has to study for a French test and has to study for a math test. One day would be math study day. On the off math day, we put in French. Then the next day is the off French day. We study math. It's that type of thing. It's really looking at what we have to study for and making sure that we are planning out the study because it boosts our recall. So when we put space in between study sessions and we encounter it, after we've had that space, we're looking at the material with fresh eyes. So kids can really determine their knowns from their unknowns. And boosting grades comes from turning those unknowns into knowns. So this helps with everything. I use this with my college students, with kids who are in AP classes, and another thing that I do with this is I combine it with a technique that we love, the Pomodoro technique. If you're not familiar with it, let me know in the chat and I can talk about it a little bit in Q&A. But in a nutshell, the Pomodoro technique uses timed work sessions, not to rush work, but to provide structure to work time. So you can combine the spaced practice method of studying with Pomodoro sessions during study time so that you're really supercharging a student's attention. So I want you to keep this in mind because now I'm going to show you how we can use this. Caitlin in the chat says she's not familiar with Pomodoro. Caitlin, we will talk about that in the Q&A. And also, if you want to click in the chat, we have a great blog post about the Pomodoro method, and we also have a printable guide. It's one of these strategies. Like when I talk about it with kids, I use this like silly phrase which I call dumb smart. because it seems so simple, almost to be dumb, but it is so smart. And I will address that a little bit later in the Q&A. But let's see how like spaced practice kind of looks. So I combine spaced practice with my little planning hack. So during this time of year, when the sun is shining and motivation is not as strong as it used to be, I generally hack the planning process. So when we're planning with students, we generally sit down and we get all the things that the kid has to do and we put them on a calendar, and the planner becomes the punishment. You have to get all this stuff done, and if you don't get this done, you're not going to the play this weekend. Or it's like, if you don't get good grades in here, you're not going to Ruby's birthday party this weekend. And that is what kids a lot of time experience with using planners. That planners are these things that adults use for the things that they say are the most important. And if I don't do what the planner says, I can't do the things I want to do. So when motivation is down, providing any kind of like punishment for things we have to do, that's just going to send anybody right into the dumps. So what I do is I ask the kid to first tell me everything they want to do this week. I loaded up festivities first. And I also ask them like, well, how long do you want to do that? Like before you do this fun activity, what do you want to do for the rest of the day? Oh, I'm not doing anything else for the rest of the day. Okay, cool. So the first thing we do is we put all that in. Then I get a second like area to write, and I really recommend doing this with like a printable weekly calendar. And Educational Connections has a great free one on our website, and like two post-it notes. And I'm going to show you on the next slide, approximating one piece of paper and two post-it notes what this can look like. On one of the post-it notes, I put down all of the detail deadlines. So I put down, okay, this week you have this homework due this day, you have this test upcoming at the end of the week, and you have maybe like a paper that's due next week. And then when we have all of this stuff on our different little pieces of paper, I engage the kid in reflection questions to tap into self-regulation. So we have this fun only calendar right now, but you are motivated about school. You like getting good grades. You want to stay in this type of class. You want to keep taking Spanish next year, or your grades are really important to you because you run track and you have to maintain a certain GPA. So then how do we balance the stuff that we want to do that's really important to us and the stuff that we have deadlines? So here's my piece of paper and my little post-it notes, okay? So and I use like a little, like almost like a kid's like handwriting kind of font. So here's the mock calendar that the kid first fills out. Well, I have track on Monday, then I play the trombone, and the band has to do commencement rehearsal for the music we're playing on Wednesday. And then this weekend I'm booked because Ruby has her birthday party. I'm going to the musical, and Sunday is Mother's Day, so I don't have time to do anything. And then on one little post-it note, we have the things that are due this week. We have a problem set in Prob and Stats. We have a test in AP Lit. We have French vocab. And then we have some stuff that's going on next week. A unit test in Prob and Stats. A bio paper that's due next week. So we as adults know this isn't going to be all that you're going to do. But we also have to make sure that we're using those very important parts of self-regulation and self-efficacy. Self. The kid has to do this themselves, not with us saying, here's your planner, this is what you're going to do every day. So the next one I'm going to show you is the process of having the kid look at the time and put the stuff in. And this is based on stuff that I do with students every day in my executive function sessions. And so now I have all of the academic stuff here in orange. And so we start to talk about what we have to do. Well, you have that bio paper. And I get it, it's due next week. But geez Louise, if you don't do something over the weekend, what's going to happen? And I know that you have all this fun stuff happening, but you still have to make sure that you're ready for that upcoming test on Monday. And so, also in here, you're going to see what spaced practice looks like. So, I want you to look at Thursday. Notice that on Thursday, we're going to stay after school with Mrs. Hilton, the bio teacher, to work on the bio paper draft. She's having an after school session to do this. Then we don't touch bio on Friday, but on Saturday, before we go see the musical, we grab maybe a half hour, a Pomodoro session to work on those edits that we got from Mrs. Hilton on Thursday. But on Friday, it's not like we're doing nothing. We're going to use study hall time to work on the probability and stats materials. And in this example, I have some other little things that I do with students when I'm working with them in sessions. The first thing I do is I prioritize with students around this time of year to use the resources at school. If you have a study hall, whatever your school calls, it's like, study hall. Sometimes it's like, it's the school, like the school mascot, like Wildcat time or something, or sometimes it's just study hall. A lot of times kids will be in there and they don't really know what to do, or they think, oh, this is like my downtime. Wouldn't it be nice to have more downtime at home? You know what I mean? So I always encourage kids, use that time in school to your advantage. I also talk to kids about any opportunities that the teachers are having for these various projects. So you can see that, on Wednesday here, we're going to study French vocab with Madame Makarevich in her room to ready for those assessments that are coming up. Because a lot of times during this time of year when there's so much fun and sunshine and everything going on, it's like as soon as we leave school, out of sight, out of mind, I'm done in that building. If we can supercharge attention while they're already in school, and the incentive can be, well, you know what, if you do that in school, you have more time when you get home. That is a really great way to have them get their stuff done while also getting the support that'll really help them. And all of these changes, again, it isn't me filling in this calendar. It's me talking to the student and looking for those opportunities on the learning management system, but getting the student to make these great choices, which is teaching them better ways to self-regulate. Now, with all of this in mind, we want to work smarter and not harder, because you can see on our little example thing here, this kid has a lot to study for. Does this mean that this kid's going to have to spend hours and hours doing stuff? Well, if you work smarter and not harder, not so much. So one of the things that we can really tap into every time of the year, but especially right now, is what is happening in the classroom and how we can leverage that when they're studying. So kids are going to retain like 60 to 70% from class, from doing the homework, taking notes, answering questions. If a kid is paying attention in class, engaging in some way, they are going to retain information. But it's the 30 to 40% that's unknown that we have to focus on to raise the grade. Well, how do we do this? A lot of times kids think, well, I have to review everything. So I get all the books, all the notebooks, all this, junk together. Oh, I have to go through all of it. And it's overwhelming. Or they start going through it and they're like, oh, I remember this. I know all this. I don't have to study. Because they have like a false sense of security because they're recalling a bunch of it. We have to make sure that there's a way for them to identify what they know from what they don't know. The other part of this, if you use this type of a strategy to separate the knowns from the unknowns, they're able to see what they know, which boosts self-efficacy in that class. And a method that I love, and I've talked about this before, I'm like a meme, like no one, absolutely no one. Me, Stoplight Study Guide. Let me talk to you about the Stoplight Study Guide. So a Stoplight Study Guide uses a study guide that was made by a teacher. It can even use a student's notes. And what we do is we use 3 colors from the highlighter pack, or we can take a picture, throw it in a program on our phone or our iPad, and pick out colors. We highlight green, the things that the student is recalling. Green means go. I am good to go. It's the stuff I really know. Yellow, those are the, oh, slow down, a little bit of caution here. I'm recalling some of it, but not all of it. Red, stop, break on. I need to study. I don't remember any of this. And I'm going to show you like two examples. One of them on the left is a college example because this does work for everybody. Oh, and then in the chat, we have a blog entry about the Stoplight Study Guide that you can look at. So on the right hand side here, this is a student's vocab list, and my student took a picture of it and we uploaded it into our lesson space where we work together, and we were able to color code this. So you can see that a lot of this stuff is green. So I would say to the student, like, okay, notorious, tell me what that means in your own words. And my student's like, okay, well, that's like, like somebody that's like known really well, but for really bad reasons. Perfect recall, that is green. We are recalling it immediately. We don't need to study it. But then you can see, like I said, okay, tell me about the word reprieve. I don't even remember that one. Was on the list. Okay, that one's red. You got to study that one. We have some here that are yellow, but what you can see on our screen here is a lot of these words are green. So now instead of studying a whole list of 20 vocab words, maybe we're only studying like, 8 to 10 of them. It really is cutting down the anxiety about studying. If we're having like a motivation issue, I mean, I don't have to study as much. That's, oh my God, look how smart I am in this subject. I hardly even have to study all these things. I just have to study a couple of them. So this technique can really help when we have those studying tasks and, we're not so motivated to engage with them. So we're just about ready to get into Q&A. And I know I've been talking a heck of a lot about the students that I work with every day in executive function sessions. I am an executive function coach here at Educational Connections, and I love working with kids every single day. You've also been hearing in my descriptions how we organize our sessions. We use a platform called Lesson Space. We meet one-on-one, and a lot of the things that you just saw on the last slide are all things from the interactivity of our platform. So first thing we do when we get together with a student, we check in, touch base on all progress from last time. This is how I'm able to know what was going on with those quizzes and tests, and what the next thing upcoming are, and how long my student has been working on that history paper, because we're following the progress right along. We then figure out what's due, we prioritize, we put things on a calendar, or we write it down on post-it notes and put it in our sketchbook. I have a student who does that, which I think is a great organizational method. We then tackle worrisome assignments. Maybe we study together, as you saw on the last slide. Maybe we're brainstorming ideas that we can put into a thesis statement. Maybe we are working together to make like a Quizlet or another study method for an upcoming assessment. And we also anticipate obstacles, which you saw in the planning piece. If I have a whole bunch of fun stuff that I want to do and I have to do all this academic stuff, how do I fit it all in? And what could like throw me off base? So this is what everyone on the team does every single day with our students in executive function sessions. And if you are interested in this, scan the QR code. You can also click a link that I know is going to be in our chat, and you can get more information from one of these dedicated professionals who are going to help pair your favorite student with one of the members of our team at Educational Connections. Okay, so I'm going to leave this on the screen a little bit, and we're going to get into Q&A. And I also see that we have somebody that has a question in our little Q&A thing. Okay. So Jennifer, I'm going to do this one first that Jennifer asked in our little Q&A area. How do you help motivate a child who does not seem to care about grades and wants to avoid homework and studying at all costs? This is something that I see every single day. If I had $1 for every time I've worked with a kid who tells me I don't care about my grades. I don't care if I fail this subject, this grade, this entire life. Like, I don't care. First of all, like that was cute when I used to do it back in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like I think like we can all like tap into that kind of like kid thing of like, well, I don't care. This isn't anything that is going to affect me in life. I think everybody does that in a certain way. However, when it's the child that you care about most, it is devastating. And when I work with kids and I see that they're not grade motivated, my first thing is, what are they motivated by? Sometimes the thing they're motivated by is they don't like people telling them what to do or nagging them. So one of the first things that I do is I will tap into what are you motivated by? And I will ask them things like, okay, so you don't care about your grades, you don't care about this kind of stuff. What kind of stuff do you want to do? Are you interested in? Or do you want to avoid right now? I have had kids tell me, I just don't want my dad like always like looking at my grades and then saying something to me. And then I ask my next question. So what are you going to do about that? I think that a lot of times as adults, we want the kid to say, I want to get the best grades. I want to do this. I want to do that. And sometimes they will also say that they don't care, but they genuinely do. So sometimes by going at it like from the side, or even like in a roundabout way, we can get the kid where we know they can be, but it has to be about what they're motivated to do. I have had students who have told me, "Well, I don't really care about this because, like my sport is the only thing I care about, or playing a game is the only thing I care about." And it's the same kind of questions that I ask. So if that's what you want to do, does this at all relate to that? What could you do so that people maybe would leave you alone so that you could play your game? That type of thing. The other thing I'm going to say about the kid who doesn't seem to care about grades and wants to avoid homework, sometimes kids will get out ahead of something that's painful. So it's like, well, I'm going to say I don't care about these grades because I don't get good grades anyway. It's like they're really get it. They're like sometimes offense is the best defense type of thing. And once we start to figure out what motivates them, and if we get some work turned in, maybe we get some more high quality work going there. What I've seen in my work with students is that tune changes. So I have a particular student, when I started working with her when she was in ninth grade, she told me that the only thing she wanted to do after high school was live at the beach. And academics, she didn't care. She has all this homework, but it doesn't matter because she's just going to like live at the beach. And like, her mom and dad are always bugging her. She's now in her senior year. When she was in ninth grade, she felt like she was really stupid. She felt like, well, it doesn't matter. Like if I don't do this work, I'm still never going to get good grades. Long story short, because we've been working over years together, she's in AP classes. She just got into a great university. She did care. But at that point, it was like she felt hopeless about herself. Her self-efficacy about herself as a learner was really low. So I hope that kind of stuff is helpful. And there's more questions in the chat. Okay, I'm just going to say one thing. I'm looking at the time here, and we had this advertised from 12 to 12:45. It's getting close to 12:45. I am delighted to stay here and like answer as many questions as I can until 1. But if you are looking at the time and you're like, ma'am, I need to leave, good day to you. I hope to see you at another webinar. If you want to stick around and go through some questions with me, I'm gonna keep going. But anybody who needs to say goodbye, I'll see you on another webinar. Okay, so our next question. Oh, Caitlin, who also asked about the Pomodoro method. I'm going to touch on that quickly because she asked that earlier. So the Pomodoro method, and you can read all about this in the blog that's in the chat too. The Pomodoro method was started by a gentleman named Francesco Cirillo in the 1980s when he was a university student. He did not like his sociology class and he was like, I can't read this book, it's so stupid. He grabbed a kitchen timer and he put it for 2 minutes and he challenged himself to actually sit down and pay attention to the darn book for 2 minutes. Lo and behold, he could do it. And this was like a light bulb moment where he's like, okay, why could I do that like with a timer? He's studied the human attention span and he has created the Pomodoro Method. Pomodoro, Francesco Cirillo is Italian. Pomodoro means Italian, it means tomato in Italian, and his kitchen timer was a little tomato. So, what he found out is that human beings have a 25-minute attention span. We can definitely pay attention for 25 minutes, and then our attention span kind of wanes. So in the Pomodoro method, you get ready for your academic task. Get your cold water, get your favorite pen, get your music going. You set a timer for 20 minutes and 25 minutes and you work on the task for those 25 minutes. It's not a race. It's not to make you work faster or be more efficient. It is literally to break up the time and it's to make sure that you're working diligently, knowing that you're going to have a little break. When the timer goes off, you set it for 5 minutes, you take a break. I always tell kids get up and away from the material, go feed the fish, eat a popsicle, walk your dog in the front yard for a minute, and come back to the work. And that's like a rep, kind of like exercise. So you do like 3 or 4 Pomodoros of 25 on, 5 off, 25 on, 5 off. And then you can take a longer break, maybe like a half hour. So it's a way to supercharge the attention span, and it's really great for studying, for writing, for reading tasks, because it allows you to focus in, take a little bit off, focus in. And there's tons more on our website about this. So Caitlin also asked, how do you address inconsistencies with effort and performance from one class to another, particularly when it's related to perceived care slash effort from the teacher? Okay, so this one really comes down to like self-efficacy. So Caitlin, I'm going to ask you like a clarifying question. Maybe you can put this in the chat. Is your question addressing like, I'm going to give a scenario, maybe this will resonate with you. So I have a student on my roster who um, really struggles in English class, not because this kid can't do the work. The kid is doing the very similar work in science, in history, reading a lot of text, analyzing it, synthesizing it. But in the English class, it's just like, well, this is English, I'm not good at it. And the teacher perceives that kid as not making an effort. So that's kind of how I'm reading your question, because that can be really detrimental. It can also mean that that kid further has a bad feeling about that class because then they feel like the teacher doesn't believe in them. When I see something like this in sessions, I really try to remove the feelings of others from the situation. So, okay, so Caitlin says yes, all exclamation points. So, one of the things that I do in this scenario is I actually say to the kid, why do you care what this this person thinks? Okay, so this person thinks a certain thing about you, but I know you care about doing well in school. So this person's opinion of you, even though this is your teacher, they're only seeing one part of you. They're only seeing you for like 45 minutes a day in their classroom. And I know this from myself as a teacher. I have had students before where I never heard them say 2 words, and then I go to the spring musical and they are up there acting, emoting, singing. I'm like, I've never heard this child's voice. I thought this kid was really quiet and shy, But it was like my opinion of the kid has doesn't really mean that I know the kid. The kid should be able to know him or herself. So with the student that I was just talking about, that's one of the things that I've said to him lately. Listen, I know that this teacher is not treating you or saying things to you that are accurate. That doesn't mean you have to stop caring about yourself. This, you may change this person's opinion, you may not, but what can you do for the things you do care about? Because this kid is very academically motivated, has a definite major that they want to pursue in the future, is so like unbelievably gifted academically. So that's one of the things that I do. And with me, that also means that I am giving that kid a place to be heard rather than minimizing, oh, oh, who cares what Mr. McAllister says? You're not lazy, I'm validating what the kid is saying, and I'm also saying, how can you continue to do what you know is best for yourself? How can you use the skills in these other classes for this class? Let's just cut this person's opinion out of it. Whatever they say is fine, water off a duck's back, but how can you do the work that, is important to you? That I have always had success with that because it really empowers the student rather than making it so focused on, well, we don't want a certain person to say these things about you or you're not lazy. It's more like, okay, yeah, that's gross to hear, but you don't have to live under that. You don't have to live up to that negative, expectation. So that's how I address that. Okay, so Cynthia asks, do you have any tips on getting kids to allow you to help them? My daughter has an executive function coach, has an educational connections coach, but I could help her more. Oh, okay. So Cynthia, I'm going to tell. Okay, so this is another one that comes out of the kids I've worked with educational connections. I worked with a kid for about 3 years. And in the first year that she was working with me, I got an email from mom and dad where the kid literally said to them, "You're not helping me with homework. I have someone. I have someone for that now." And this was shocking because it was like, well, wait a minute. I'm here to help you too. I mean, this, this coach you've been working with, this has been a recent addition to your life. There was another part of that though that was like very like empowering in a way because the kid was communicating, I am working on this and I have somebody that I'm working with. One thing that I will often encourage, like, and I know I see the other thing is I get to work with the whole team of coaches at at Educational Connections. So like when I'm meeting with people in office hours, I know that we all do this. I will ask kids like, okay, so we use this technique where we were working together. Who do you think you could work with? If you want to use this, like, do you think mom or dad would help you with this? Do you think maybe your teacher would help you with this after school? I also think it's beautiful because you say your child is in 11th grade. So your daughter this is like also developmentally appropriate that she wants to be independent and do this on her own. We can see that as adults that our kids need more help and support, but your daughter is showing that she wants to do things independently. I would also see if she's working with an educational connections coach, like it's not like an instant thing. It's not like an add water and stir type of solution. So it may be that she can do things independently and there are other things that she needs support with. So I think that there are a lot of great ways to add more involvement, but it's also beautiful to see that she's taking on like the empowerment by saying, I'm doing this with someone. So I think like see where her academics go. See if that support is, if she's making changes, if she's being consistent with it, because that is one of the goals. We want them to be able to do things independently. Okay. So, Jesse asked a question about the Pomodoro method. Do you recommend a shorter time for a younger child? Yeah. Even in sessions when I use the Pomodoro method, because our sessions are an hour, I do what I call a mini Doro where I do 15 minutes. So, yeah, you can make it as little as 15 up to 25. It's a great way to go. Okay, so we have an anonymous question. How do you help specifically with math or other mastery type classes? I know how to help with language, history, science, but my student does the quiz corrections and is still getting worse and worse math grades. Okay, so this is something that I see all the time in my session. So my background, I'm a literature teacher. I mean, that's the humanities are for me. And sometimes when I'm working with students and it's a subject area that is not my area of expertise, I am I'm stymied by that. But what I know is that kid works with people that are experts in that area. Whenever students, parents, families come to me with suggestions about math and science, I always recommend that you work with the school. And it's not that, math and science aren't universal, but every school has its unique progression. Every school has its unique way. Every teacher has their unique way of doing things. And so when you are working with the school, you're making sure that they're getting support that's for that specific class, that specific progression. And it also means streamlining it. So if you work with somebody that isn't in the school, you first have to get them up to speed on, okay, where are you? How are you learning this? How is your teacher like teaching these methods to you? There are great programs. Some of the school districts that I've worked with have had peer tutoring programs, have had after school one-on-one with the math and science teachers. My first thing for this one, anonymous question asker, this is a gorgeous question, by the way, is to talk to the school and see what's available for that particular subject, that particular teacher, and start there. Start there so that the teacher and the other folks in that department can identify the area of growth and help to strengthen it. And then you're going to see those quiz corrections and like the homework redos, you're going to see that start to strengthen because you're going to be able to pinpoint what the area of misconception is. What I know about like my students that are struggling with like math and science always build upon each other. So I want you to think of like a brick wall. If one brick is out of there, the wall might be a little bit less stable, or you might have like a drafty hole. So we want to make sure that we have somebody that can fill that in, and that's going to be best served by the school. Okay, so Candace asked, I think this is going to be our last one. What if your 16-year-old daughter loves learning, um, and wants the assignments to be perfect, but struggles with deadlines? Okay, so I love the context that you're given here too, Candace, that she taught herself college level science, you know, but now she's told that she can't take AP classes. Okay, so one of the things here, you have a little thing in here about like deadlines and perfection. Sometimes we can get into situations where perfect can be the enemy of good. And I work with a lot of students, very high achieving students, who they struggle with executive functions that have to do with time management, that have to do with deadlines and planning. Some of the thinking with these students seems to be, well, I'm going to get this so good. I'm going to get this so perfect. And when I turn it in, it's going to be better than anyone has ever seen. That's how I have to turn in all of my work. But the reality is that even if you do turn in something that is like amazing like that, if it's significantly late, it can never be perfect. And that is very hard for driven, passionate students because they're thinking about the learning process. They're thinking about, well, this thing has to be very, very unique. I have a student I'm working with right now who's a high school senior and is this amazing writer, is constantly late on every single writing project because every single writing project has to not only be like the thing that was assigned, but has to be perfect in their head. So, like, we were working on an assignment the other night that was this like, imagine you're writing a letter to like a character from Great Expectations. And the student was really fixated on, well, I mean, I wouldn't write to any of these people, and this isn't how I would do it. And if I want to make something good, what I really want to do is I want to write this thing and turn it in. Like, I'm going to actually write a different ending to Great Expectations. And instead of getting into the project and focusing what they were asked to do, they're now getting in the weeds because they have this perfect idea that they want to work on. And that's going to be so much better than what was assigned. So a lot of the discussion is about What is the function do you think of what your teacher has assigned you? Why do you think your teacher is asking this of you? Do you this student when we started working together, they have a like a bulletin board where they have to post like discussions, was like 8 weeks behind on it because every one of these discussions that was supposed to be like 5 minutes, it was impossible for them to do even in a week because, well, how do I answer this question? I mean, and look at all these answers. These people aren't even thinking about this kind of stuff. And then we really discussed like, what's the purpose of this? It's supposed to be a 5 minute free write. It's supposed to be your initial thoughts. This isn't supposed to be an essay. You do not need sources. So those types of things with deadlines are so, so important because we also have to be able to like work on different skills that our teachers are assigning us. So that is our last little question. And I'm looking at the time here. I got 2 minutes until one. I am so delighted, but you guys asked the best questions today about motivation, which is really motivating me. I hope that you have a beautiful Friday. I hope that wherever you are, the weather is nice and pretty and sunny. And I hope to see you again at one of our webinars. Please make sure to fill in the Q&A at the end. They really help us get better and better. Thank you for a beautiful afternoon, and I hope to see you again. Bye.